Anger, in its essence, is a fundamental and natural emotion, an internal alarm system that signals something is wrong, that our boundaries have been violated, that an injustice has occurred, or that a threat is approaching. It's a driving force for change and self-defense. But what happens when this powerful and necessary energy doesn't find a healthy outlet for expression? It transforms into repressed anger, a complex state where frustration, irritation, resentment, and even rage are systematically swallowed, forcibly contained, and camouflaged by an apparent calm, a "that's fine" that rings false. Imagine yourself in a series of everyday situations that, combined, can illustrate the web of repression. You're at work, and a colleague makes an inappropriate joke about you, undermining your confidence or professionalism. On the contrary, it accumulates, dense and heavy, within you. The manifestation of this repressed anger may be subtle at first, but it gradually becomes more present in daily life. A constant irritability that seems to come from nowhere. An inexplicable fatigue that no amount of sleep resolves, frequent tension. Headaches, persistent digestive problems, or even a strange feeling of tightness in the chest, as if there's an emotional knot. It's as if your body, more honest than your conscious mind, is trying to release this pent-up energy, something your mind insists on keeping under lock and key. But to avoid any conflict or to maintain a good image, you force a laugh and ignore the offense. At home, your partner forgets something crucial you've asked for repeatedly, something that truly mattered. And instead of expressing your disappointment directly, you just sigh deeply, holding on to the hurt. In chaotic traffic, someone cuts you off abruptly, risking your safety, and you silently curse, heart pounding, but don't react outwardly. Each of these small acts of swallowing emotion, each time you avoid direct confrontation or the genuine expression of what you feel, is another brick, carefully laid in the construction of an internal wall of unprocessed anger. This hidden anger doesn't magically disappear. It doesn't evaporate. Many people learn to repress anger from childhood, conditioned by cultural and familial messages that label anger as an ugly, negative, or dangerous emotion. Phrases like, "Don't cry, be strong," "Don't fight with your sibling, be good," or "Don't get angry over trifles," teach us from an early age to associate the expression of anger with disapproval or punishment, because it's not just the current incident causing the reaction, but rather the last straw in a reservoir overflowing with old, unresolved hurts and frustrations. We come to believe that anger is inherently destructive and that expressing it will make us seem weak, out of control, or inadequate. However, the truth is that repressing anger can be far more damaging in the long run than its appropriate and assertive expression. It can lead to a series of devastating consequences. Disproportionate explosions. A small trigger, something trivial like a spilled cup, can unleash an overwhelming fury. Chronic resentment. Stored anger transforms into a bitter, persistent feeling, silently corroding the soul, undermining trust and poisoning close relationships, turning them into minefields of unspoken emotions. And to protect their own emotional and physical space, allowing others to repeatedly invade their boundaries, which further fuels the cycle of repressed anger. Physical and mental health problems. Constant tension and chronic stress associated with repressed anger can negatively impact the immune system, making the body more susceptible to illness, as well as affecting the cardiovascular and nervous systems, contributing to anxiety, depression, and even autoimmune diseases. Difficulty setting boundaries. Individuals who repress anger often find it immensely difficult to say no, to stand up for themselves. Repressed anger is, therefore, an invisible burden, a vital energy desperately seeking an outlet, a release valve. It is the deceptive calm of a dormant volcano that, beneath its tranquil surface, seethes with lava about to erupt, ready to release all the accumulated pressure in an unpredictable and often painful way. At the heart of the dense forests and vast Asian jungles resides a predator of stunning beauty and unquestionable power: the tiger. There is hardly another animal in the wild kingdom that so perfectly embodies the idea of contained strength and silent majesty. When hunting, a tiger can remain motionless for hours on end, almost invisible, observing its prey with astonishing concentration. Every movement is meticulously calculated. It assesses wind direction to avoid detection by scent, studies the terrain to find the best approach, and measures distance with millimeter precision. Its calmness is a formidable weapon, a refined survival strategy honed over millennia. Every muscle in its powerful body is tense, ready for the explosive pounce, but the waiting is as crucial, if not more so, than the final attack. There is no impulsive haste, no unnecessary display of power. The explosive force is there, latent, pulsing beneath the skin, awaiting the exact moment, the perfect millisecond to be unleashed. With its imposing stature, defined muscles, striped coat that blends hypnotically with the dense foliage, and penetrating eyes that seem to see through the soul, the tiger is the very definition of a presence that makes itself known even in absolute stillness. It doesn't need to roar to be feared. Its mere presence inspires respect. The tiger's behavior in nature is a spectacle of patience, strategy, and brutal efficiency. It doesn't expend energy unnecessarily or expose itself without need. This fierce patience is precisely what makes it so fearsome and effective. When the unavoidable moment finally arrives, the tiger's attack is sudden, overwhelming, and incredibly potent. It emerges from nowhere, with a speed and force that surprise even the most vigilant and experienced prey. It is a concentrated explosion of energy that seconds before was completely hidden, undetectable. And the roar, when emitted a sound that resonates deep and visceral, is not just a sound. It's a declaration of sovereignty, a primal warning that echoes through the trees and makes those who hear it tremble, establishing its presence and dominance. Despite its ferocity and might, the tiger is largely a solitary animal. It prefers seclusion and discretion, patrolling and protecting its vast territory with silent vigilance until its sovereignty is clearly challenged. Its autonomy and the way it handles threats, first with subtle warning, then with calculated containment, and if necessary, with an all-out burst of force, make it a perfect metaphor for the inner energy that many of us carry. The tiger teaches us that stillness and patience are not signs of weakness. They can, in fact, be the concentration of immense power, awaiting the right moment to be effectively and purposefully unleashed. Here, the bridge between human behavior and animal instinct becomes vividly clear and undeniable. The repressed anger we carry operates in a surprisingly similar way to a tiger's hunting and defense strategy. The forced smile, the compliant posture in the face of abusive demands, the resigned silence in the face of provocations or disrespect. All of this can be our silent tiger's skin, a social camouflage that hides the true intensity of the emotion boiling and bubbling inside. We wait to avoid conflict at all costs, to be accepted, to not cause problems, or to not be seen as difficult people. But each wait is an accumulation of pressure, a growing weight on our spirit. Think about your own life. How many times have you observed a situation that deeply irritated you, hurt you, or frustrated you, but instead of reacting immediately, you chose to wait, to swallow it, avoiding confrontation? How many times have you accumulated a series of small daily frustrations, biting your tongue and ignoring yourself until a seemingly insignificant event, a simple last straw, triggered a disproportionate and overwhelming reaction, surprising everyone around you, including yourself, as you found yourself reacting in a way you didn't expect? Just like the tiger that holds its explosive force, controlling it until the perfect instant, many of us accumulate anger internally, allowing it to condense and intensify. And when boundaries are truly and irrevocably crossed, when patience reaches its absolute breaking point, what happens? Repressed anger, finally uncontained, breaks free in an unexpected attack. It's like the tiger that, after hours and hours of patient stalking, finally pounces with all its ferocity on its prey, releasing all the accumulated energy in a single devastating strike. The intensity of the reaction is directly linked to the depth and duration of the repression. Someone who constantly swallows anger doesn't explode over a minor disagreement or a small fault, but rather from the sum of all the small disagreements, hurts, and frustrations that were never truly expressed or resolved. The tiger metaphor helps us understand that external calm can, in fact, mask a seething inner fury, ready to emerge when boundaries are finally breached, in an overwhelming, unexpected, and often painful way for all involved. This release isn't necessarily physical or violent in the literal sense, but it can manifest as an explosive verbal outburst, an uncontrollable and desperate burst of tears, an impulsive and drastic decision that surprises everyone, or even the development of physical symptoms and psychosomatic illnesses. It's the hidden roar that, after being stifled for so long, finally echoes, startling those around who only saw the apparent calm, the tiger's gentle face. This explosion isn't the reflection of the last isolated event that triggered it. It's the inevitable result of a long period of containment and emotional suppression. The profound connection between repressed anger and the tiger's behavior can be more clearly understood through the lenses of modern psychology and neurobiology. At the core of our complex emotional response lies the limbic system, an ancient and primitive part of our brain, intrinsically linked to emotions, memory formation, and motivation. It's a well-documented physiological reaction. The heart speeds up, pumping more blood to the muscles. Breathing deepens. Pupils dilate. And muscles tense, ready for the mobilization of energy. This is our neurobiological version of the tiger's preparation for a pounce. The body equips itself for confrontation or escape. However, instead of allowing this powerful energy to flow freely and be released through expression, when we choose to repress anger, we are essentially applying an artificial handbrake to this natural and vital process. Within this system, the amygdala stands out as our primal alarm center. It's the brain structure responsible for rapidly processing threats, fear, and anger, activating the famous fight or flight response in a fraction of a second. When we feel anger, the body instinctively prepares for action. Renowned psychologist Daniel Goleman, in his seminal work on emotional intelligence, highlights how the continuous suppression of emotions, especially intense ones like anger, can lead to a chronic accumulation of stress in the organism. It's as if the energy of anger gets literally trapped inside the body, with nowhere to go. This contained energy seeks other outlets, which is why many people who systematically repress anger end up developing a myriad of psychosomatic symptoms: debilitating tension, headaches, chronic gastrointestinal problems, unexplained skin rashes, bruxism, or even more serious conditions like hypertension or fibromyalgia, as the body desperately tries to release this accumulated tension that the conscious mind insists on holding on to. Beyond the physical impacts, the constant repression of anger can alter our thinking patterns and behavior. We might become more pessimistic, excessively critical of ourselves and others, or develop a persistent sense of victimhood. In the long term, the difficulty in expressing anger in a healthy and constructive way can erode self-esteem, undermine confidence in one's own abilities, and severely impair the capacity to set healthy and assertive boundaries in relationships, creating a vicious cycle of frustration and repression. In contrast, the assertive expression of anger, which should always be distinguished from uncontrolled aggression, allows emotional energy to flow, promotes self-awareness, authenticity, and effective conflict resolution, just as the tiger resolves its vital need through direct, but calculated and purposeful, action. Science, therefore, shows us that this apparent calm is not a state of genuine peace, but rather a prolonged state of internal readiness that that without proper and conscious release can overload the entire biological and psychological system, resulting in a high cost to health and well-being. To make the tiger metaphor even more vivid and connect it directly with your experience, let us look at some real or hypothetical mini-stories that illustrate the journey from apparent calm to an unexpected storm under pressure. These examples serve as mirrors to recognize our own inner tiger. Maria was known in her workplace as the most patient, understanding, and collaborative person on the team. She never complained, accepted all extra tasks assigned to her, even when already overwhelmed, and maintained a smile on her face, regardless of the stress. Her colleagues adored her, seeing her as a pillar of serenity. One day, a new intern, on his first day and still lacking experience, accidentally spilled hot coffee on Maria's desk, staining some important papers and her keyboard. To anyone else, it would be a minor incident. But Maria, who had been harboring frustration for months from being constantly overworked, unrecognized for her efforts, and feeling invisible, couldn't take it anymore. She exploded in a fit of rage, screams, uncontrollable tears, accusations about all the past injustices she felt she had suffered. The intern was frozen in shock. Colleagues fell silent. No one understood how sweet Maria could have such a disproportionate outburst. Maria was the tiger, silent and contained for too long, accumulating pressure, until the last straw, the spilled coffee, triggered the furious, accumulated roar of months of repression. The case of Maria, the sweet one who exploded. Joe has always been the good son, the responsible elder brother, the one who never caused problems. He never confronted his parents, even when he felt infantilized, disrespected in his personal choices, or criticized for his life decisions. He swallowed comments about his love life, his career choices, and his aspirations, always responding with an "it's okay" or a forced smile, while inside, anger fermented. This anger, never directly expressed, transformed into a silent, self-destructive rage against himself, a constant frustration with his own lack of voice. Joe's dilemma, the good son and the invisible pain. Physically, Joe began to feel chronic. Donna Lucia, an seemingly charming and well-mannered elderly lady, lived in silent conflict with her downstairs neighbor over noise. Instead of directly talking to the neighbor about the problem, Donna Lucia initiated a series of indirect and veiled actions. She loudly banged pots and pans in the middle of the night, forgot her trash at the neighbor's door, and made sure to complain loudly about the noise to all other residents in the building, except the person in question. The downstairs neighbor, not understanding the reason for such passive hostility and feeling attacked by something invisible, began to retaliate with her own small provocations, escalating a cold war in the building. Donna Lucia was the tiger who, instead of roaring directly and openly defending her territory, subtly but constantly scratched the trees in the other's territory, until the tension became unbearable for both sides, resulting in a toxic and draining living environment. Persistent back pain that no doctor could diagnose or alleviate. It is a dynamic and powerful force that, like the tiger in its patient stalk, accumulates energy, builds internal pressure, and inevitably seeks a form of release. This release often occurs in ways that surprise everyone and can cause pain and destruction, precisely because it was not managed, expressed, or understood in time. One day, during a family lunch, his father made a derogatory comment about his new painting hobby, implying it was childish. Joe, in an instant that seemed to come from nowhere, abruptly stood up, slammed the table, and declared with a choked voice that he would never return to that house, leaving his family completely shocked and speechless. The back pain, perhaps, was the physical weight of the repressed anger, and the outburst was the desperate leap of the caged tiger, seeking a freedom that only explosion seemed to offer. The passive-aggressive neighbor, Donna Lucia's silent war, These examples demonstrate that repressed anger is not an inert or passive emotion. Understanding repressed anger through the vivid metaphor of the tiger offers us a powerful and transformative lesson. True strength lies not in the blind denial of our emotions, but in their conscious mastery and wise management. The tiger, in its wild essence, doesn't deny its innate power. It manages it with instinctive wisdom and impressive precision. It knows perfectly when to wait patiently, when to act decisively, and when to unleash a roar that echoes and asserts itself. And we, complex human beings, can and should learn to do the same with our own emotions, especially with powerful anger. The first and most crucial lesson the tiger teaches us is that of deep self-awareness. We need to develop the ability to identify the first and most subtle signs of anger, even when it tries to camouflage itself under other emotions or sensations. It's that sharp stab of irritation that arises from nowhere, the discomfort that settles in the body, the visceral feeling that something is wrong, that a boundary has been invaded. Recognizing these early signs is the first and fundamental step to prevent anger from accumulating and transforming into an explosive and uncontrollable reservoir. Start asking yourself, what truly bothers me? What situations or people make me feel invaded or disrespected? What, in my daily life, am I constantly swallowing and suppressing? The second lesson is that of assertive expression. It's vital to understand that this doesn't mean being aggressive, violent, or disrespectful to others. It means, on the contrary, communicating what we feel clearly, directly, respectfully, and, crucially, at the right time and in the appropriate manner. It's like the tiger that, before an attack, might emit a warning growl, a clear signal that its boundaries are being tested. Expressing anger assertively means learning to set healthy boundaries, to say no when necessary without guilt, and to defend your values and needs without attacking the other person. It is the art of transforming the potentially destructive energy of anger into a constructive force for effective communication and the strengthening of more authentic and honest relationships. The third lesson the predator offers us is that of conscious time and space. The tiger chooses its perfect moment to act without impulsivity. When we repress anger, we are, in a way, repressing a vital and energetic part of ourselves, diminishing our capacity to be whole. By embracing and managing this powerful emotion, we become more integrated, more true to who we are, to what we feel, and to what we need. We can then transform the raw, primal force of anger into unwavering resilience, into the courage to stand up for ourselves in the face of adversity, and into the ability to protect our physical and emotional well-being with conviction. It's not about taming the tiger until it disappears or loses its essence, but rather about learning to ride it, directing its monumental strength towards our own growth, overcoming challenges, and building a more fulfilling, conscious, and truly authentic life. We too can and should learn to take a moment when anger arises intensely. Breathe deeply. Step away for a few moments. Process the emotion before reacting impulsively. This interval allows us to access the more rational part of our brain, choosing the best way to express anger productively, rather than being completely dominated and carried away by it. It is the strategic pause that prevents the thoughtless leap. Finally, understanding our inner tiger invites us to a profound reflection on our authenticity and integrity. May the majestic tiger serve as a constant reminder. True strength lies not in silencing or annihilating the inner roar, but in learning to listen to it carefully, understand it deeply, and above all, direct it with wisdom, purpose, and respect. With this in mind, what roar, that stored emotion, that unspoken truth, have you been silencing within yourself? And how can you, starting today, begin to release it in a way that empowers you rather than imprisons you?